stops all the rumors about an unforgettable happening today. We're in reference to the opportunity to spend 2 full hours with the amazing Michael Tellinger. And that's what we get to do today. So the title of today's chat is One Small Town, One Connected Universe. And I want to welcome our subscribers in the Freedom Portal, as well as those of you who are joining on our social media channels like YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, and others. The format for today is I'm going to talk with Michael for probably about 40 minutes on all platforms open to the public. And then we're going to shut down those platforms and invite people to come in. If they want to continue the conversation, then you can do that for free. And we'll show you the steps that you can take to do a free trial into the Freedom Portal, which will give you immediate access back into the conversation. So more about that as we get into the show. I want to invite Michael to go ahead and bring your camera and your mic on. Michael, it's so great to see you again. Thank you for coming on.
Hello, Foster. Lovely to see you as always.
How are you doing today?
Doing very well, very well. It was a bit of a day of trying to recover from almost 2 weeks on the road with all the One Small Town activities here in South Africa, traveling long distances. So I tried to relax today, but that was not really possible. So here we are.
Well, thank you for, at the end of those 2 weeks, being willing to join us during your evening time in South Africa. So we'll dive into the conversation in a moment. But for anyone who's not familiar with you, I want to introduce you to our audience today. So Michael Tellinger is sometimes referred to as the George Clooney of the consciousness and freedom movement, and now you can see why. Now, what many of you don't know about Michael is that he has been a singer, songwriter, actor, musician, and pharmacist. This is a man of many talents. Another thing about Michael is that he years ago courageously exposed the corruption of the central bankers in South Africa, and I'm going to have him describe that today. That was one of the things where he started becoming one of my major heroes a decade ago. So most people all over the world have been enjoying Michael's books, his videos on archaeology and ancient cultures. We'll go into that today. But especially we're going to start today by focusing on how Michael is pioneering new modes of voluntary community self-organization, both in the Ubuntu movement, which he started, and specifically in the One Small Town strategy, which is absolutely fascinating. You know, I'm focusing most of these shows now on people who aren't just telling the world about the bad news. There's a lot of people doing that well, and people are waking up by the hundreds of millions. Now we're focusing more on, okay, who's actually solving these problems? And that's one of the main reasons why I invited Michael on. He's a true hero for me and for millions of others. He's fun, he's brilliant, he's courageous, and he's relentless. And you'll hear about that. I'm privileged to call him a friend and ally. So let's get going, Michael Tellinger.
Thank you, Foster, for those very kind words. I'm deeply honored. Thank you.
Well, here's what I want to do. And I cleared this with you ahead of time because you're definitely a candidate, in my opinion, for one of the most interesting men on the planet. And I want people to get a chance to experience the scope of your explorations, of your knowledge. And you're also one of those people who's not dabbling out there. You're actually tying it all together. So my goal for today is to kind of start in specifically on the One Small Town and then go backwards in time. We'll go back to how you challenged the central bankers. Then I want to go back like literally 100 million years into some of your ancient culture discoveries. And then I'm going to be asking you, especially at the end, but anytime you want as we go along, how do all these different activities really fit together? So I want to dive in specifically on One Small Town, because you've taken all this vast knowledge and wisdom that you've developed, and you've created a very interesting tip to the sphere of solutioning these days with a whole new strategy for community self-organization. So I want you to describe for us what the one small town approach is. And as you're doing that, I may throw up some visuals so that people can get a sense of the branding and so forth.
Great, Foster, thank you. So just the 60-second elevator pitch, I guess, for one small town is realizing that unless we stand together in small communities and cooperate and collaborate, we're pretty much vulnerable, continue to be vulnerable to large corporations infiltrating small towns, whether they're mines, whether they're the Walmarts, whether they're any other large business, the pharmaceutical companies, or any large corporation that goes into a small town, offers jobs to people, and then as and when they want to close their doors, unfortunately, they shut down the operation, they leave the entire town jobless, without work, farms are standing empty, and so forth. And we can see that effect all over the world. I know the USA very, very well. I've traveled to the USA for 12 years, every year for at least 3 months doing my lectures and tours. So I got to know the USA incredibly well. And it's like that pretty much all over the world. South Africa is no different. The small towns that used to be beautiful, pristine, well-maintained are decimated by large corporations. So the One Small Town initiative is really a way to outsmart the globalism, to outsmart the agenda of the World Economic Forum and the globalist agenda, to force people to leave small towns and move into the large cities and metropolitan areas because there's nothing to offer in the small towns, and then become victims and vulnerable to the exploitation of the control and the large corporations that offer false havens for people in the cities and metropolitan areas. And where better to start than in small towns where people know each other, everybody knows everybody. It's easy to get a message across, to call a meeting in the town hall and say, this is what we're going to do. We're going to stand together. We're going to grow a lot of food. We're going to restart the farms. We're going to reactivate the factories that are standing empty, and so forth. So in a nutshell, is One Small Town initiative is starting a cooperative in a small town, getting the people of the town to become members. Everybody becomes an equal partner and shareholder in that cooperative. And then we start to develop business plans, and we pitch those business plans to investors from outside. And what's interesting to the investors is that when the investor invests in one of these business plans in a small town, they're going into partnership with an entire town and the community. They're not going into partnership with one individual who may turn out to be a shark and screw them over. So here and the other important thing is that every member of the One Small Town initiative or the cooperative, for the privilege of being an equal shareholder and co-owner of each one of those businesses that we start collectively for ourselves, each one pledges to contribute 3 hours a week towards these businesses and towards the community projects that we start to upgrade our towns, our orphanages, our old age homes, our roads, fix the potholes in the parks and all the stuff that has just fallen apart. And if you look at what a powerful situation that turns into, it's quite spectacular. If you take a town of 10,000 people, imagine if you have 10,000 members, each one contributing 3 hours a week for free, 3 hours a week of labor for free. We suddenly have turned our little town and our members into a powerful cooperative that can rival any large corporation. We have 30,000 hours of labor that we are providing. We're choosing to provide ourselves for free towards our businesses, our farms, the growing of food, creating of laptops and technology or bicycles or pharmaceuticals or whatever it is we choose to start and do. We decide what we're going to do. We control it. These are our businesses, and no large corporation is going to dictate to us what we can and cannot do. And that, in a nutshell, is the One Small Town initiative. It puts power straight back into the hands of the people, where they decide what will happen in their town and not be driven by a corrupt mayor or corrupt politicians or large corporations with ill intent.
I love how grassroots this feels. It's literally from the bottom up, with people creating their own future. And now this sounds great as an idea, but people are, I'm sure, out there wondering, well, is this actually going to happen? So I've been excited to hear an update from you recently about how this is getting started in several places. Can you share that update with our audience?
Yes. So just in case your audience aren't aware, this is not something that happened last month or last year or in the last few years. This is something that launched more than a decade ago, around 14 years ago. The idea started to grow and slowly but surely form into what it's called now, the One Small Town Initiative. So it was really in 2016 that we officially started to promote it as the One Small Town Initiative, which started with the grassroots of the Ubuntu movement. Ubuntu is an African word that stands for unity within community, where people work together for the benefit of everyone in the community, with a simple slogan of, if it's not good for everyone, it's no good at all. And so the One Small Town grew out of that. And we've been fine-tuning it and promoting it to mayors and councillors around the world, in the USA every year, and right across the world, Australia, Brazil, Europe, South, Africa, et cetera, et cetera. In the last 6 months, we finally, after years and years of proposing the idea, finally the people started to see that this is a real benefit to the mayors, to the communities, the councils, and people started to realize this is something we should look at. This is something we should embrace and implement in our town. And the reason why it's so simple, because there's no cost to the mayor. It doesn't cost the mayor or the council anything to promote this idea. So it's not unless if we approach the mayor and say, okay, we'll put down $1 million and we'll come help you fix your town. No, we just, our message to the mayor is, you become the face and the voice of this initiative. Yeah. And we will work with the community to create investment opportunities for the community. You just promote it as the mayor. You become the face and the voice of the initiative. And suddenly, over the last 6 months, we have seen a number of mayors around the world reach out to us. And we are now implementing One Small Town in 2 countries, in South Africa, in a town called Kuruman, which is a large town. So it's a bit of a baptism by fire for all of us. And we're learning, as you said, this is the first time we're doing this after many, many years of promoting the idea. Now we're right down to the coalface of the initiative, where we have to do it. And what an exciting journey, where we're learning so much about so many different aspects of politics, how municipalities work, the very subtle interaction between community and municipality, how to navigate that potential minefield. So we're launching this in South Africa and in Lebanon, in a town called Ras El Matan, a beautiful historic town with about 10,000 people. Mm. And as I speak to you, while we are laying the foundation for those 2 towns, which means we have to have the membership, the IT sign-up membership systems, the ability to allocate 3 hours a week to our members to where to go and contribute their 3 hours a week. We can talk about that in more detail, like how do we determine where people go to? Can they choose where they can go contribute their 3 hours and so forth? So it's become an incredibly sophisticated IT blockchain type platform that we've had to create. And we've literally created that in the last 3 months, since we realized that we can't launch this without this foundation that manages and controls this. Otherwise, it just becomes a complete mess. And
you just mentioned this IT blockchain. One of the most interesting aspects to me of this whole idea is what you call the infinity tokens. Can you describe that?
Yes. So that was something that just happened literally in the last 3 months, where we realized that while we're building the blockchain membership structure, where people sign up as members for a specific One Small Town cooperative, and you can only sign up for that cooperative if you are a resident in that town. So you can imagine just that alone, to manage that alone, people don't realize how complex that is. Like, how do you make sure that the people signing up for the town live in the town and they're not signing up from London or Adelaide or wherever, And we had a problem when we started signing up members. Suddenly we found that people are signing up for the One Small Town Kuruman and One Small Town Ras El Mutton in Lebanon from all over the world. And we had to intervene to prevent that from happening. So we literally are learning as we put in this platform together. And then we realized that, well, we have to somehow manage when people arrive for their 3 hours a week contribution. We need to know whether they've arrived and done their 3 hours. So what is it going to be? Is it going to be like a ticket, a clock ticket kind of mechanism, or how are we going to do this? And obviously that's an old technology, old way of thinking. And the platform, by being forced into having to create this platform blockchain system, we suddenly had the capacity to be able to use smartphones and membership cards with QR codes that connect to that central database of ours, that tell us whether that individual that was allocated to perform 3 hours in this job or that community project, whether they've arrived and done their 3 hours. And then we realized, hold on, but if we're doing this, then why don't we actually attach a cryptocurrency kind of community token to that? Because now suddenly the people are working for 3 hours and they get something in return. They get a token that represents 3 hours of sweat equity. So our cryptocurrency community tokens, as far as I know, is the only token or cryptocurrency in the world that is actually supported and underwritten by somebody's 3 hours of sweat equity. It has real value. And that just changed everything.
It gives a whole new level of meaning to the term proof of work around the tokens.
Unexpectedly, we came up with the Infinity token, and that is now the foundation for One Small Town around the world, in every town and every project that we start. And just remind me about the projects as well, because that's a slight deviation from the One Small Town initiative. Well, One Small Town idea. Now we have a community token. It's the same token that anyone, anywhere in a One Small Town project, when they contribute their 3 hours, they get an Infinity token. And now we have a global community token that has real value and not just airy-fairy, pie in the sky, Bitcoin kind of what's it worth, that kind of nonsense.
Yeah. One of the things when I first started hearing about this number of years ago, I was both excited and wary about it, because so often when you hear about a new form of social self-organization and it's we the people and that type of stuff, it turns out to be mandatory coercion and just a new form of socialism and communism. So I remember I really grilled you on this years ago, and I was pleased to find out that, as far as I can tell, every aspect of this is voluntary. It's just win-win for whoever wants to participate. And is that accurate?
Absolutely. And that's that. Thank you for bringing that up, Foster. People must realize that no one is ever forced into this. So in Kuruman and in Ras El Mutton, in Lebanon, South Africa, the cooperatives have been launched. It's a legal entity to which the residents of those towns can voluntarily sign up. So we have our agents, our task team leaders, and they're the only ones that can sign up members because they live in that town. So now we know when they sign up somebody, it comes through our appointed task team leader who signs up members, so we know they're actual residents and not people from anywhere, any other parts of the world. Yeah. And completely voluntary sign up. No one is forced to sign up, but by signing up, you read the terms and conditions. Everything is explained to you. You get a pamphlet. You can watch the website. You can watch all the videos and say, wow, I love this. I want to join this. And then you make a decision. You sign up. And once you sign up, you become an instant member and a co-owner of the co-op, and all the businesses that the co-op that will launch in the months to come and into the future, as long as that One Small Town initiative is alive. And what you do through our platform now and our blockchain technology, you are allocated a digital wallet into which your Infinity tokens are paid to you every time you perform 3 hours, your 3 hour contribution. And, it changes everything because this is not work. You're not working. So the labor laws and the labor acts don't apply to this. You're an owner of the business and you choose to work the 3 hours. So none of the labor laws and those guys that are trying to force companies and unions and all these labor acts, that doesn't apply to this at all, because we are co-owners that choose to work as much as we choose to. And no one can tell you you're working too much in your own business, right?
Oh, that's brilliant. I wasn't aware of that aspect. Another aspect that I am aware of is you and I have been talking for a while about which would be the best candidates amongst the new clean energy technologies to be a part of this program. Could you describe what your vision is in terms of how a one small town community could integrate a new, not only the use of a new technology, but the actual fabrication of one as well?
Yeah, Foster, that, as you said, we've discussed this in great detail, and especially your knowledge of the technology that's out there from your extensive travels around the world and interacting with all these amazing minds and inventors. And it's a minefield out there. It is very sad to see how the brilliant minds of the world, the inventors of the world, because of their naivety and lack of knowledge of what's going on in the world and who pulls the strings and who controls the world, who controls the governments, how the naive minded inventors literally run into the arms of the devil and hand over their IP, their knowledge, and etc. And this is why we have not seen any free energy technology, if you want to call it that, or new energy technology, water purification technology, and so much more. Cures for cancer, cures for disease, and so forth. All those amazing technologies that we all know exist. Many of us have seen that. And once you've seen a so-called free energy device work, it does something to you. You realize that it's real. This is not just some pie in the sky, airy fairy stuff. But the problem with all these major inventors is that everyone seems to have the same idea. They want to all make their generators and sell them to the world and make a fortune out of it. And that's not a solution. That's never been a solution and never will be a solution. Because then you just become, somebody somewhere is going to exploit it. They can rip off your patent. They can patent it. They can stop you from selling yours and then start selling theirs to the world, and they control the market. So somebody somewhere in the large corporations are smart and they have loads of money to monopolize it and take it over. One Small Town, as far as I know, is the only initiative that provides a real solution within the healthcare, cures for disease, cures for water, and cures for providing free electricity to the community. Because when we launch our generator into a One Small Town scenario, it's not about individual people having their own generators in their houses. We put up a generator for the town. And that generator belongs to the community collectively. It belongs to that cooperative. And as long as you contribute your 3 hours a week towards the upliftment of your community, you get free electricity, as much as you need. So if you're a farmer and you're contributing towards the well-being of the community with your farm, you're part of the One Small Town initiative, you get as much electricity as you need to run your farm because you are a member of the One Small Town co-op and you contribute to the well-being of your community. If you're a dentist, you get as much electricity as you need to run your dentistry shop, and so it goes. So as long as we never sell the technology to individuals, it gets given to the community. They pay for it. Obviously, somebody has to manufacture it, so there's a cost of manufacturing. Once that generator has been paid off, it belongs to that community and those people. The cooperative controls the use of it, and as long as you contribute your 3 hours a week, you get free electricity. And that goes with pretty much everything else that we do in the One Small Town model.
I'm still hoping that my friend Maxwell from Zimbabwe can come through, because he's just a few hours drive from South Africa. And he's unfortunately proven to be very unreliable of late, but he's a brilliant guy, and I'm hoping that he can come through with a technology that he can actually deliver that and start in the town that you were talking about, the One Small Town in South Africa. Now, I think you had mentioned that there's interest in the U.S. Amongst some mayors in the U.S. Can you mention those cities yet?
Look, I haven't got the names of the mayors. We have
Yeah.
interacted with some mayors over the last 6 to 12 months, and even more recently. So they sort of pop their head up. We get an introduction. We have a
Right.
quick call, and then it sort of sits. But there are also some communities that are interested in joining the One Small Town initiative. So on that note, I must say that the One Small Town initiative has evolved. Originally, I was very dogmatic, if I can use that word. I was very confident that we can only utilize small towns because it's got a defined boundary. You know where it begins and where it ends. There's a municipal boundary, and that can then formulate the area and the population and so forth. And then it's easier to manage and control, because we've had so many people saying, well, we have a farm, we have a factory, or we got this. Can we join the One Small Town initiative? And we weren't ready. We couldn't manage that.
Yeah.
But since we've developed our blockchain platform with our token allocation, with our 3 hours allocation, and with our capacity to ring fence a specific One Small Town initiative, whether it's a town or a factory or a farm, where a number of people decide they want to set this up as a co-op, we can now go in that direction. So we've now expanded the possibility that it's not just towns and mayors or community leaders that can launch a One Small Town initiative. And we've just done that in South Africa, where we've signed up the first school. And this is, for me, probably the most exciting development in the One Small Town initiative. So we have a school of about 1,400 students. It's an agricultural school, so it helps even more. Because what I haven't mentioned yet, a lot of our focus is on growing food with the One Small Town, is agriculture, working with farmers and growing as much food and as diverse food types as we possibly can, and then creating the value chain from the farm through the manufacturing of the different types of food, the packaging, and making sure that those healthy, organic, well-packaged foods reach the people. And so now we've got an agricultural school with 1,400 students, and we've got special technology that we're working on right now that activates seeds. It's quite spectacular. Makes seeds grow much faster. They become organic, crazy seeds. They grow faster, bigger, and they produce more crops. So we're about to start this project with the school and start teaching these kids how to treat the seeds and then grow the seeds on the school agricultural land. So there's a lot of excitement in the school, and that school can make a lot of money for itself and for its community through this simple program. So that opens this up to every school around the world, and we'll have a model for it from starting here in South Africa.
Yeah, I really see this as a next level medium through which all these brilliant innovations can begin to get into, particularly to the grassroots. And so I want to, in just a minute, move on to another theme, but just in terms of summary, what's the best website for people to find out about the One Small Town initiative?
Our main website is onesmalltown.org. Please go there for all the links to everything else. The news page is there. And just go there for all the information.
Okay, and then the last thing is, just in summary, if I'm the mayor of Santa Cruz, California, and I get wind that Tellinger's up to another interesting thing here, what would be the three major things that a mayor, a local politician, what would be the three most compelling thing that would get him or her interested in initiating this program in their area?
First of all, there's no cost to the mayor or the municipality. That's always the number one appealing thing.
Right.
People always go to the mayor. We got a great idea for you, but you have to give us $1 million, right? So we don't ask anything from the mayor. All the mayor is requested to do is to become the face and the voice to promote the initiative to the investors from around the world, to come and look at what they're doing in their town and invest into one of the businesses that the community is developing. So that would be the number one thing to the mayor. There's no cost to you. There's only an upside. There's no downside to help motivate the community to create the co-op among themselves, to register the co-op and start developing the business plans, and then reach out to me so we can help them structure everything, sign them up as a One Small Town initiative, and start to promote it the way we are now promoting the other towns.
Okay, great. All right. Well, we can retouch into this later on as we're connecting it with the other areas, but particularly while some of the people on the public platforms are still here with us. I would love to invite you to talk for a minute about this amazing story that happened a number of years ago with the central bankers around the whole time of the mortgage fiascos and so forth. Can you give us a synopsis of your adventure with the central bankers in South Africa?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. It's a it's a very interesting moment, very interesting 4 years of my life. It was nearly 4 years that it sucks up. And, I just want to warn everyone that's listening to this or give you a word of caution. If you want to go to court and take on the banks, think very, very carefully, because it sucks up your life. It sucks up all your time, all your money, all your energy. It is like you are going into a battle against the devil. And it's a very dark energy that you take on, and it has a profound on your effect, your family, your friends, and your life. And it can suck you dry. And it did that to me for 4 years. And but unfortunately, I came out of it relatively unscathed and much wiser, because it taught me so much about the ins and outs of the banking system and how they never lose. They never lose because they control everything.
But in the process, they can get exposed. And that's what no matter how it turned out, one of the outcomes for me was that I learned more about the central bankers through your adventure with them, and and then promoted that to people all over the world. A lot of people around the world were awakened by your adventure. So in a nutshell, what happened?
So, it was shortly after I released my first book, Slave Species of God, in 2006. I started to realize about the whole banking thing. And in fact, while I was writing Slave Species of God, that's when I realized in 2005, that's when the whole Ubuntu movement started, and the idea of One Small Town, when I discovered the true origins of money, what money is, where did it really originally come from, who started the first promissory note system. And it goes all the way back to the Sumerians and the Sumerian temples and these mysterious kings that appeared on earth suddenly out of nowhere, that could smite people with advanced weapons and force them to do things against their will. And these first priest kings started their first temples, from which they issued promissory notes in the form of clay tablets. And they would ask people to bring in their gold and silver, and in return give them these pieces of clay that became the first promissory notes in world history. And that suddenly I realized that the way the banking industry works today is no different. It's exactly the same, except instead of clay tablets, we use pieces of paper as promissory notes. And then they extended it even more. The modern banking system works with bills of exchange, promissory notes, and negotiable instruments, right? So these very weird terms and expressions that we learn about the banking system, and most people have no idea what that even means or what it stands for. But in essence, what it is, it's all black magic, it's all trickery, it's all a giant con job. And so I realized that the banks don't actually own anything. They don't have money. They just use us to make us believe that they have money, and they give us promises in the form of promissory notes. And they take up our hard-earned possessions, whether it's your home, your farm, your car, anything. They take away from you because they loaned you something that they don't have in the first place. This thing called money. They made you a promise. And what I realized is that the banks worked with these companies called securitization companies. And the moment you sign a mortgage bond, the bank takes it and they sell it to a securitization agency that then turns it into bonds, and they float those on the stock markets around the world. So the bank doesn't even own the house. They've actually sold the ownership onto somebody else. And that just became, I couldn't believe it. And it was that during that 2008 period that started to come out. And at one stage, I was behind in my mortgage by about 2 or 3 months, and the bank sent me a note, and I thought, you know what, that house, it was a spec house I bought for an investment, and I thought, you know what, let me test this mortgage thing and this promissory note thing, because I was about to pay off the backlog and catch up with the mortgage, and I thought, no, I'm going to test this thing, and I said, well, send me a final statement. I want to settle this bond fully. How much is the outstanding bond to the property? And the bank said, no, we're not going to send you a statement. So just keep paying this. And I went, no, I want to pay this in full. And they dug their heels in it. So I dug my heels in and said, well, I'm not paying this. And then they dragged me into court. And then this whole thing started. And I said, well, I doubt whether the bank actually even owns the property, because they sold it and so forth. And I started to argue the whole securitization thing. And you can imagine in 2010, this started. The media in South Africa and around the world they knew nothing about it, the mainstream media. Mm-hmm. So they started to call me a crazy person. And, there were headlines on the lamppost when you drive to Johannesburg at the Sunday Times, the biggest newspaper weekly. It would say Standard Bank versus the aliens. That's how they try to undermine. So they referred me as the alien guy, right? Is this the best you can do? So Standard Bank versus the aliens, and that's how they undermine and belittle you when you take them on.
So let me just pause you for just a second there, because I want to make sure that everybody understands, and that I understand this, so you asked for a statement on your mortgage and they wouldn't show you a statement. Why exactly do you think they wouldn't show you the statement?
I have no idea. I still don't, for the life of me, I don't understand what happened there. I literally asked them, I said, what is the outstanding amount on this bond? I want to settle it in full. And they wouldn't send me an outstanding, like a bill. I asked for a bill. They sent me an email with saying, this is the amount outstanding. I said, no, I don't want an amount. I want a bill. Because what I wanted to do in those days, there was that whole, value, return your bill for value for purchase, or whatever it was called. So I was going to do that. I was going to return the bill, said accept it for value and all that. So, people were doing all that kind of stuff. So I was waiting for a bill to say, yes, thank you. I recognize this bill as a promissory note, and therefore I return it in full value and cover that payment. But they wouldn't send me a bill. They just send me an email telling me what the outstanding amount is. And I refused to pay it. I said, I'm not going to pay it unless you send me a bill. And then that dragged me into court. And they created. I
saw that in other cases with other people as well, that they didn't want to have any paperwork showing the fact that they sold that property probably multiple times and it was gone, and they didn't actually deserve to be accepting your payments at that point.
Yeah. And it's funny, Foster, it's funny. And my friend Scott Kundle, who at that stage is a remarkable individual, one of my best friends, he was also doing a similar thing. He had the New Economics Rights Alliance in South Africa. He had like 250,000 members on that. It was a powerful movement. Yeah. So these are all supporters of ours in court suddenly. And so they basically hauled Scott and I into the Supreme Court in Johannesburg and try to treat us like collectively, and the same judge like adjudicating over our two separate cases. So I said, hold on, these are two separate cases. You can't. We should be in two separate courts. Why are we in one court? And you're talking to us together. It was an absolute nightmare. You could see the complete and utter abuse of power. But the very first day when I was in court, and we were up against the most powerful advocate, it's like the barrister in the UK. It's higher than a lawyer. Only advocates are allowed in the High Court. Lawyers don't go to the High Court. And they wear black robes, and they enter backwards, and they exit backwards, and it's your lordship, my lord, to the judge on the pedestal. It's a complete black magic ritual when you go into the courts, right?
So let me clarify also. Now you're defending yourself, right?
Yeah. So I didn't have a lawyer or anyone defending me. I went in my T-shirt and shorts to go there with a piece of paper, a bunch of notes that I made to defend myself against the highest paid lawyers in the world. And that didn't go down well, So like, who is this guy completely inappropriately dressed? And I didn't know the rules. So I just stand up and talk when I'm not supposed to talk, and interrupted the judge and interrupt the lawyer, the advocates, and just caused havoc in court and rattled their cage. And I did that on purpose. Not the first time. By the third time I went into court, I realized, hold on, I can use this layman excuse that I don't know what the rules are, and they can't throw me out because I have the right to defend myself as a layperson. And then I really started to milk it. And so they just basically try to show that, I didn't pay and all that. But what I wish I had known this right up front, because in the very first court case, the judge actually asked the advocate, said, where is the contract? Where's the agreement? And he said, well, it's in the office of the lawyers. And that the judge should have thrown the case out, because if the contract isn't in court, then the case can't continue. And I didn't know that. I should have immediately objected and said, well, if the contract isn't here, this case can't continue. And then the judge would have thrown it out. But I was a little late. I was still rusty. I wasn't sharp enough, but 3 years later, I was very sharp.
I remember with some of the other similar cases that part of the thinking was that the banks never actually spent any money on the asset. So they had in common law, they had no claim, no real claim other than the fact that they convinced you to start paying them for issuing you bills.
Yeah. So they sign the agreement with you, and then they immediately sell it to the securitization agencies, and there are a number of these in South Africa, and they're monsters. These guys are monsters. They turn over billions and billions and billions, and people don't even know these companies exist. Right? It's crazy. And so they actually sit with the assets, but they don't even sit with the assets. They don't even know what assets they sit with, because they bundle them and they float them in all the stock exchanges around the world. So
well, I want to pause you again there for a moment, because we need to transition over to just the Freedom Portal platform. So I want to encourage all of those of you who are new to the Freedom Portal and watching on the public platforms. If this is of interest to you, we're going to transition now, and we're going to show you how to do, it takes a couple of minutes to transition over and do a free trial. And we're also going to show you a little teaser as to give you a larger sense of what goes on in this amazing community, this global community in the Freedom Portal. So let me turn it over to Leandro, and then so he'll guide you through the whole process. And then those of you who want can rejoin us, and we'll continue this saga with the central bankers. And then also we'll go into the ancient cultures, the amazing artifacts and the whole new approach to these ancient culture communities and energy access and so forth that Michael has developed. So Leandro, over to you.
Absolutely. Good to see you guys. Good to be back in the Freedom Portal. This conversation is fantastic thus far. And Michael's just one of those guys that just has so much to say over so many different topics that you're really going to want to catch the rest of this show. It's going to be fantastic. So let me go ahead and show you guys first the Freedom Portal trailer that Foster mentioned. That'll give you a taste of what it's like to be a member with us and to get to be a part of all of these incredible shows. So you just give me just a second on that.
We're also collecting questions in the Q&A in the Zoom platform. So I know a lot of people already have questions for Michael. So feel free to put those in the Q&A rather than the chat, because we'll go to the Q&A first to look for them.
Okay, so here we go.
The key is freedom. We are in a lethal mess right now in the world.
They're lying, and we know they're lying, and they know that we know that they're lying, yet still they lie.
Did you see what Fauci said? Do you see what the WHO did? Things that start bubbling up that I just feel like I need to communicate with somebody because there's all this crazy stuff happening.
Media is the greatest enemy and is the greatest tool being used against us.
A lot of people are probably familiar now with the World Economic Forum saying, well, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. But these people plan to own everything.
But we forget that underneath that are a bunch of scared children who have nuclear weapons and biological weapons, and now artificial intelligence.
I have to say, technocracy and understanding that is really a doorway into the whole next level of red pill.
And that's one of the reasons why we're pushing so hard to expose this stuff, and also to surface what are the ethical guidelines by which we can actually proceed harmoniously with the benefits of AI without falling prey to this authoritarian agenda.
This effort towards globalism and global governance, ultimately what that is, an effort to create extreme centralization. So a response to that is to decentralize.
If we scan ahead into the timelines, we're living in a world of blockchains at the protocol level, infrastructures forming the basis of humanity's operating system and structures going forward for generations to come.
I think it's the most important topic on the planet right now. How can we create a universal morality that can actually guide us through all these different questions?
We are being connected by something much greater than ourselves.
People are gathering around truth and freedom because it's critical that we do.
Imagine the amount of human energy, creativity, liberation, release from fear.
We've got love, we've got the truth, and we've got the life force on our side. And ultimately, that is going to be unstoppable, even if it's ugly in the transition.
We're changing the world. That's what's up, and the stakes have never been higher.
The good news is that this is still a story in the making.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Leandro. Now we'll show you the steps to get over into the Freedom Portal to join us for the rest of the show.
Absolutely. Okay, so for those that have not been with us before, you're going to basically go over to the thriveon.com website and click start your free trial. And once you do that, it's going to give you the opportunity to select which of the levels you'd like to join. And, it's going to give you the choice of Explorer or Angel, so you can select which of those you prefer. And, just like any subscription, we're going to need your credit card. But if you're like most people, you're going to want to stay here and be a part of this community. So you can go ahead and click Return to Freedom Portal Catalog. And then once you get back to the calendar page, you'll actually be able to click Sign On to Continue. You're not going to click Access Now because you've already signed up. And so you're going to click that Sign In to Continue. You're going to enter the credentials that you just set. And that'll take you back to the event page where you can click Attend. Then you can click Join Webinar on that next page, and that'll bring you back into the Zoom conversation so you can finish the show with us. So looking forward to meeting you guys that are going to be joining us, and enjoy the rest of the show.
All right. Thank you, Leandro. So let's jump back into the courtroom. So you're in there in your shorts. So you got your piece of paper, and I remember that you made a point of just laying out all of the different levels of fraud of these bankers, so that at least it would be in the court record. Is that right?
Yeah.